This is Whiskey Whereabouts. I'm Tim, and today I'm finally going to review the Port Charlotte 10-year whiskey that's come up many times on the channel, but came up, I was surprised to see, just a little bit short in a recent blind taste I did here in the channel when I paired some Islay whiskeys versus some peated American whiskey. So how is this whiskey going to stand up to my review today? How will it compare to the whiskey that edged it out in that blind tasting? Find out right now. My whiskey journey has taken me to Scotland and back. I've explored whiskey education, tastings, and distilleries from Islay to Speyside. And now my journey continues here, with you, on Whiskey Whereabouts. If you are not familiar with it, let's go down the sort of tail of the tape on this one. So it's Port Charlotte, so it's peated Bruichladdich, and it has the standard sort of Bruichladdich presentation of 50% ABV. Obviously, it's non-chill filtered, no color added. And if we're talking about Bruichladdich, we're probably talking about some wine casks in the mix, right? And that's no different here with the 10-year. The vatting breaks down with 65% first fill bourbon, 10% refill bourbon, and the remaining 25% second fill French wine casks. Now, we don't know anything more about the wine, the specifics, but we know that we're going to have that sort of wine cask influence. Okay, so going in on the nose, yeah, there is some heat there from the 50%. It's wood fire, smoke, peat, right up front, as you kind of expect, right? Going a level deeper, you're getting a little bit more, yeah, that vanilla sweetness. Lot of bourbon cask influence here. Some citrus, some lemon. So to me, the next layer down is a red sort of a cherry, a sweet sort of cherry fruit. And there is another element, a tropical kind of fruit element. To me, it's kind of banana-y. I had put on a list not very recently on the channel about recommended pairings with the flavors of summer sort of grill barbecue season. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out. Put the link up here. And it's not overwhelming. It doesn't jump out at you like some of the other whiskeys, but there's a savoriness, a saltiness. There is something meaty to it. And as I go a little bit deeper, sort of just unpacking, it's wrapped around it. There's a bit of a little sort of a barley sort of grain. It's complementing the sweet elements. It's standing on its own. There's a nice, really nice balance of some different flavors here on this nose. Okay, now we're gonna go in on the palate neat. Yeah, so when it arrives on the palate, that ABV is there. So big mouthfeel, also a real black pepper heat, you know, from the ABV. It's not overwhelming and it's not throwing anything off, but it's the first thing. You take that first sip, kind of hits while you acclimate to it. Next, as palate develops, now you're gonna start unpacking the flavors. Rich honey, the lemon, again, the citrus. The fruit is now up front to me, almost appley, sweet, and it's chased with another sort of fruit element. To me, wine casks, dark berries, and it's there. That's in there. It's another layer down. It's a little bit more subtle. It's definitely salty. There is an element, it's less grilled meat. There's a tannic kind of flowing through, but it's not overwhelmingly bitter. To me, it presents like, you know, tea leaves or something on the palate. Let's go back in one more time for the finish now. Yeah, big plume of that sort of ashy kind of wood smoke. This isn't one of the sort of peated whiskeys where the peat smoke is actually pretty subtle through the first couple stages, and then you get that big sort of smoke bomb. That's how I think of Lagavulin 16, right? The smoke has been here all along, but you do still get that sort of blossom of that smoke. It's hanging out in the back of the sinus right now. This is a long finish. It's still with me, all of it. It's just staying with me. It is honey sweet but salty. There, I wouldn't say meaty, but there is a grilled kind of savory sort of element with that peat that is in there. There is some oak, some sort of a little bit of the tannins, but they're really held in check, really balanced, which is nice for me. because the bitter isn't getting sort of to play too loud and throwing things out of bounds. I've got a nice sort of runner of that sort of along the sides as the finish kind of just develops and then recedes. But I've got that savory and that sweet on the sort of middle of the tongue. That with the smoke makes it a really inviting finish. It makes you the savory and the sweet and balance. And that's the sort of the word for this whiskey. There's not a million things going on in this whiskey, but it has more than I would say its sort of counterparts. It's Islay sort of entry level 10 years and maybe the Lagavulin 8 year. And what it has is really, really balanced and complementary. It does have a little bit of heat, so we may want to see if we can unlock anything with the water, and does that make it even more drinkable. So I'm going to hit it here. I don't have that much left, so I'm only going to hit it with probably 3 really good drops. And I'm going to let it sit for a second. So going quickly on the nose with the water now, sweetness right up front. That knob's been turned way up on the mix. The same sort of sweet elements. Smoke's a little bit more subtle now. The citrus is there. The berry. A little less so, I think, with the savory elements, the salty elements, and the peaty elements. Let's go back in on the palate very quickly with the water. Smoky honey syrup. You know, the mouthfeel's still there. The honey sweet, way up front. Even the water can't get rid of the liveliness, a sort of black pepper kind of feel. It's not hot anymore, but you still have that texture. You still have that sensation, which is nice. So let's go back in on the finish just one more time. It's still pretty solid. It's still long. What I don't like is that delicate sort of balance now. I'm getting a little bit more tannic bitter than I want relative to everything else. I'm getting the berry. I'm getting the sort of honey sweet still. This is incredibly drinkable with 3 drops of water. And it is absolutely no problem. After you've sort of really unpacked this whiskey neat and really experienced it, a little bit of water makes it really, really, really sippable, really easy drinker. So it doesn't ruin it. It's not the way to taste it. It's not the way to appreciate. Okay, so before I unpack my rating, my review of this whiskey, just want to remind you to keep up with us on Instagram over at Whisky Abouts, and check us out at whiskywhereabouts.com. That's where the shop is, right over here. And I've said a lot of nice things about this whiskey today. It's a whiskey I remain very sort of high on. And if you have been watching the recent videos on the channel, when I reviewed Laphroaig Quarter Cask, I did say, in comparing sort of values, that this whiskey was head and shoulders above the Laphroaig Quarter Cask. And I also, if you saw my video with a blind flight of 3 Islay sort of entry-level whiskeys and 2 New York American peated whiskeys, if you haven't seen it, I'll put it up here. Spoiler alert. Blind, I picked Laphroaig, edged this whiskey out. These were 1 and 2, 1 and 1A maybe. And so where does that leave us? Well, I'm going to assign this whiskey the same sort of rating as the Laphroaig Quarter Cask. It was the 4 glass rating on the whiskey. I do think, and I said during that blind tasting video, there's more going on here. That the Laphroaig is not the most complex or complicated whiskey. This one has a lot more complexity and rewards sort of appreciation. I am going to give a little bit extra credit here to this whiskey in terms of value. Now, why am I doing that when this whiskey costs more? It costs, less than $5 more in most places than the Laphroaig Quarter Cask and the Lagavulin 8, where this whiskey is significantly better than that Lagavulin. I would point out how well presented this whiskey is. For that few dollars more, you're getting a full 50% ABV. You're getting none of the artificial color added. You're getting the sort of wine casks in the vatting, and you're getting a whiskey that is really rewarding. If you're really looking to sort of unpack and sit with and appreciate the whiskey, I would say that this is the most sort of complex of those entry level sort of Islay whiskeys. On that front, I would put it against any of those sort of 8 or 10 year expressions that you're thinking of from the big sort of Islay distilleries and those whiskeys that you know. So I'm going to boost the rating on the Port Charlotte 10 year to 4.25 glasses. And if you enjoyed this video, I hope you will make sure that you're subscribed. You can press this big button right over here if you haven't already, so you won't miss any of the future videos that we have coming. I'll see you on the next one.